La 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 la.
Technical problems. There we go. That was a lovely la 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 la. We picked up on the microphone there. Any other tunes you can do for us tonight, Drew?
Well, you know, it just seemed to be taking forever because of technical problems.
Seems to be the case.
Yeah. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to tonight's interesting modelling company the Midweek Revue, or as we should call it tonight, the Midweek Revue.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
don't ever try that again.
Okay.
Just you've caught the sun, haven't you?
We've had Drew singing, me cracking off top quality Michael McIntyre jokes. You know, it's like, come on. Anyway, hello, welcome to tonight's Midweek Revue. We've got, as you can see, our special guest tonight is Mr. Mike Reeves of Hangar Resin.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Michael, and with us also is live from Somerset, as he calls himself these days.
Yes, a very wet Somerset, it has to be said tonight.
It's very wet today, isn't it? Yeah. Although we managed to avoid it. We went walking up on that Breen Down this afternoon, and I said that was very West Country, wasn't it? That Breen Down.
Breen Down.
Try that again in my best BBC pronunciation voice. We went up on that Breen Down this afternoon, and it was lovely, dry, no problems. Got back, started raining. So
Not now.
No, terrible.
Don't tell us, Mike. It's 98 degrees and sunny.
Well, it's 100, but you're close. And
so
I have to have my blinds closed, otherwise that glaring white backdrop that you see now is even worse.
Well, that's that thing they call the sun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird.
No excuse for it.
Yes. Anyway, we've got Mike's on tonight because Mike's gonna be talking about his Matchbox experiences, which is good fun. It's always good to have a different perspective on this very British kit companies.
Yeah, I never really think of Matchbox as being an American thing. You kind of thought you guys were all Revell and Monogram, sort of, you know, that sort of thing.
And Drew, I would say actually you're right, because Matchbox was hard to find.
Yeah, it's just one that you never really consider as part of the American scene, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Well, let's put it this way: back in the late 70s, certainly in the UK, Monogram was very much not something you tended to see in a lot of toy or model shops.
We had a couple of good model shops in Yeovil, and they had a really decent range of Monogram kits, but they were still very much exotics. You know, they were
not like Eschi or Italeri or anything like that,
No.
where you had a UK distributor. They were very much kind of on the peripheries. But yeah, Matchbox in America, there's the thing.
Well, I think you guys kind of hit the nail on the head, though. I think that the UK, Europe in general, got so much more of the local homegrown stuff. Airfix, Matchbox, Humbrol, Heller.
Frog.
Same thing, Frog. When we saw it, it was more of a, hey, what is that? And as a kid, when I'd see a Matchbox box art, just like it would be like an Airfix box art, because I know you guys touched on this the other night with Spencer, it was like an eye-grabbing, attention-getting box art. Whereas most Monogram, Revell back then were really just clunky, goofy-looking. I mean, you go back to the blue box days of the old Corsair from Monogram, the Hellcat. Would they do the little biplane thing too?
I think Monogram were the first people to extensively use photographs as well, weren't they? On boxes.
At the late 70s, that's when Revell started doing it as well. Obviously, you had that rich era of box art in the 70s with people like Brian Knight and names escape me. But then towards the late 70s, when you started getting those oval, the white boxes with the oval on it, made up models. So,
well, and I think in the United States case, we've got a lot more of maybe the Japanese imports at the time than you guys did. We had a lot more Fujimi, Hasegawa.
I mean, I don't actually, because we had Hales who were importing Hasegawa extensively from the early 70s, weren't they?
Yeah, but Fujimi was still in the late 70s through to about the mid 80s. Because I can remember when I went to Wings and Wheels Model Shop in 1985. That was the first, Wings and Wheels Model Shop. That was the first time I'd ever come across the Fujimi 76 scale armor stuff.
Right.
Because the
it's funny because I kind of we're going full circle back to at the moment where we've got some great hobby shops opening in Somerset. But in Yeovil, this tiny little town, which back then was like 30,000 population, there was 3 really decent model shops who between them had extensive selections of Hasegawa and Fujimi armor, monogram 48 scale kits. It was a really, really, a great sort of model scene in this little town of mine.
Nice.
And they all disappeared over the years, but it kind of hearing other people say, oh yeah, Fujimi was really rare where I was, and it's like I couldn't imagine it because it was just that they were part of my kind of scene every week. There was as much chance of me spending my pocket money on a all right. I mean, they weren't great kits. Stuff like the 72nd scale Fujimi Corsairs or Hellcats and stuff were pretty awful kits, but they were there on the shelves if I wanted them.
Well, the thing is,
and I think it kind of goes from, depending on the shop and their reach that they want. I mean, you get some shops still here in the States that they do a lot of, I don't want to call it regional, but they, now that shipping's getting more worldwide. But back when I was younger, and remember, we're talking 53-year-old memory, guys. When I was younger, it seemed like you could go to one shop and they had Airfix, they had a little smattering of Matchbox, they had the Revell monogram, standard. But then you go to another shop and they didn't have any of that, but they had Frog, Novo, Smur. Smur, was that what it was called?
Yeah,
Smur,
yeah.
Smur.
Just weird stuff. So I think it was a dichotomy of where you shopped and maybe by region and how they were able to get the kits versus today where you can basically get any kit from anywhere.
It's kind of it's interesting to discuss this distribution sort of 45 years ago compared to, like you say, today, where quite often I go and order a model off of eBay and I don't even pay any attention to where it's coming from.
Right.
It's true.
The thing is free shipping.
The thing is, we're talking about you're talking about what about how the stocks in Yeovil. Bear in mind, I was late 70s. What Bristol, right? So we had Beatties on Penn Street. We had the Modeller's Den, which is now Antics Model Shop, but this is the Modeller's Den when it was on Fairfax Street. We also had the big Hamleys toy store at the top of Debenhams in down the end of Penn Street. There was also the model shop up Gloucester Road. There was another model shop up Gloucester Road. In fact, there were 2 Gloucester Road, Bristol. There was Nobby's Hobbies and another one, and they were literally almost opposite each other. It was worse, shall we say, it was worse than the Glasgow ice cream war. Let's put it that way. And there was. But still within that, and again, you'd find the occasional kind of exotic things in there. And I think, like I say, Beatties would have been very heavy with Eschi, Italeri and stuff like that, and Revell. The Hamleys, they had a lot of Roco mini tanks, which is the first time I ever came across that stuff.
I remember Roco.
Yeah, but in terms of Fujimi, it was Wings and Wheels, 85. That was the first time. I think that was because Toyway took up the distribution.
Yes.
Because obviously then 2 years later, everybody was going mad for British Phantoms. So,
and I know I'm probably looking at the fact that America is much more vast than the UK, right? You guys are the size of about Michigan, maybe a little bit bigger. But when I was over there, what impressed me the most, other than the beauty of your country, and don't make that weird, I really loved it over in the UK.
We're going to make it weird at
But
some
the
point.
fact that every town I went to during our travels in the 2 weeks we were there had a model shop. They had a hobby shop. We have 2 in the 7th largest city in America that are even worth it, like looking in.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, we got. I mean, Andy's isn't. Is Andy's?
Well, he's an empire now.
Sorry.
He's an empire now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He's making his own kits, Drew. For goodness' sake, come
Yes.
on.
Oh, he is, isn't he? Yeah.
Get with the program.
I was sworn to secrecy. I've known that for a long time.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Mike, the next time you come to these shores, we will take you on a Le Tour de Somerset, because that's going to be a right old jam-packed day, isn't it?
For tea and cake.
It's going to. Well, no, I mean you know
That's a given, right?
Froome, Antics. I know Antics. We'll say Antics. Actually, which side of the river is Antics on? That's north side of the river. That's
North,
technically
yeah.
Gloucester. Yeah, technically Gloucester, but never mind. But no, we've got Froome Model Centre. We've got Antics. We've got Jadlam. We've got your chaps now down in Ilminster. We've got honestly,
Buffers.
yeah, absolutely. In fact, I got a comment here from Steve Moores, and he says, "JM, do you remember Trent's in the butts?"
Whoa, hey!
Hey, let's keep it clean.
Let's not make
Do you
it
remember
weird.
Trent's in the butts centre? Let me finish reading that. In the butts centre in Bristol. Do you know what? I possibly might. Steve,
Reading.
I possibly might. I certainly that might have been on my big birthday bash in 1974 when I went out for the day, 73, 74 with my father. I certainly do remember Cordings in Wokingham, which was where I got my first ever Eschi kit in 1973. And that was their 72nd scale Wesp.
You're going to have to do an Eschi tribute month because
we're going to do
they had
an
so
Eschi
much
tribute
cool
month.
stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately we're stuck for a month that begins with E. So
Well, there's not many of them. Oh wait,
what we should have done.
Isn't that why we're doing Eschi September?
No, what we could have done, we could have done this in ready for June the 21st, and we could have had Eschi Equinox. Eh?
Don't do that again either.
No.
Eschi Equinox. I don't know why Mike's telling me what to do on this show. It's just like,
you know what?
Oh,
Because
he's moved straight into a management position.
He is.
I'm the American, and that's how we work.
Well, I was going to say it's good to have a functioning adult in the room for a change. So right, and I'll just say, Jim Altegott says we had many imported kits to choose from: Bandai, Fujimi, Otaki, Hasegawa, Tamiya, Frog, Airfix, and of course Matchbox. Otaki, yeah, great kit. We should have Otaki.
My first exposure to Otaki was in 1978 when we got kits sent to us, my brother and I, from Canada by my uncle and aunt in Canada. And the 2 kits that were sent were, funnily enough, the Fujimi Wasp and the Otaki Corsair. And I got the Corsair and my brother got the Wasp. And that was Christmas 1978.
Otaki October.
And
Otaki October.
Yeah, Otaki. And oddly, and rather topically, some of those Otaki kits were reboxed by Matchbox in the late 80s with the original box art.
Yes, they were, weren't they? Yes.
And
then later reboxed again by
AMT as well, right?
Yeah, but
if
you go back to some of those Otaki kits from the, well, actually, this is the thing. You go back to some of those Otaki kits. Some of them are a bit, but some of them, things like the Corsair, the Focke-Wulf 190, you look at them, and if you're not looking at them with an eye to accuracy, but if you're just looking at them as, as kind of like molded kits, you'd be thinking, well, where were these 1990s?
Yeah, the only thing that gives away the fact that they're not sort of 1990s is their, shall we say, simplicity. But the quality of the tooling is just, it's all recessed detail. Stuff like the P40 and the Corsair and stuff like that were beautiful.
P47.
Yeah, P47 is absolutely stunning.
The Spitfire obviously lacks its gull wing, but as a overall, it's I've seen it used many times as the starting point of an incredibly nice model.
The 109 is a nice kit. I wouldn't say it's a great replica, but it's a nice kit. And even the Mustang, which is a little bit overly recessed rivety, again, it falls into that dichotomy. It's a nice kit. But you look at it and you go, oh, that nose, you couldn't get a Merlin in there. In fact, you couldn't get a Gypsy Major in there, quite frankly. But but yeah, they were all reboxed by Matchbox as well. Weird, isn't it?
Well, again, to wax nostalgic, Nishimo reminded me a lot of Otaki.
Yep.
I built one to this day. One of the favorite kits I ever built was the Nishimo 148 scale KI 43 Oscar.
Yep.
It literally
was it Nikimo that did
put
that
itself
massive
together.
Did they do that massive 1/20th scale Cessna?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
Skyhawk.
I can remember that in the in Model Hobbies, which was a shop which was a newsagent's downstairs and a model train and model aircraft thing upstairs, and it was just had this kit had been in there for years, and I just remember the box being gigantic.
Yep.
Like
No,
that's
you are.
No, we're all caught in nostalgia at the moment.
Oh god, yeah. It's not what it used to be though.
Oh.
But yeah, it's in fact some of those I call them Nichimo, but you call it Nikimo. So
yeah, I've always called it Nikimo. I think it's one of those. I don't know. You call it Nichimo. Mike calls it Nichimo. I call it Nikimo.
Actually, I call it Nishimo.
Nishimo.
I will run it by my resident man in Japan, Norman England, to see what he has to say on the.
He lives in Japan, and his name is Norman England.
Yeah, and guess what? He's an American.
Wow, even better.
He's from New York.
New York.
But no, he's a lovely guy actually. But yeah, I'll run it by Norman, see what he has to say. But it's a bit like people who say, it's like when people say to me "esky," and I'm like,
yeah,
that really bores. Or
it drove me nuts when people would say ESCI.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Or cartographer decals.
Cartographer, yeah. Oh, dear.
Speaking. But Mike,
we could go forever on this.
Yeah, we could do. I mean, I'm not one to talk. I'm from Dudley, so anyway. And I'll tell you what, Mike. If you ever come to the UK, if places to visit, Dudley isn't one of them.
Yeah.
I'm upsetting all our viewers in Dudley tonight, but hey, look, I was born there, for goodness sake. So
have we got any viewers from Dudley? Dudley.
Hey, don't no. We nip that in the bud. Otherwise, I'm going to start doing. I'll start doing tell again.
Steve, it's aluminum. Thank you.
It is aluminum. I think.
Yeah, it is aluminum. Yeah. We added the I incorrectly.
Yeah.
So
it's.
I will. That's a hill I will die on, Mike. It is aluminum.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was called aluminum.
Tim says it's in the north. Apparently, probably the north actually. Sorry, it was Jim Alticott who said I still pronounce it Esky. Thing is, Jim. In fact, what I might do is, whilst these two bobbleheads start talking in a minute, I might go and grab I might go and get the advert from Airfix magazine back in the 70s, because up until I saw this advert, I used to call them Esky, and the advert says pronounce it Eshi, and it was like But then
that's what I've always called it, even as a kid.
But then potato, right. Is it Tamiya or Tamiya?
I can remember getting a 1978 Eshi catalogue with some of my birthday money one time from Model Hobbies again. I managed to get a Matchbox Helldiver and the 1978 catalogue because I was about 20 pence short to get them both. And the guy in there just went, "Oh, you can have them both then."
Was that the black cover? Was that the one with the black cover?
Yeah, I think it was. It was such a long time ago, but it had all the 48 scales before the 72nd scale even started.
Yeah, all the 48
and it had all the 48 scale box arts with the targets on them.
Yeah, I've got that catalogue in the bookcase here. Mine's still got the sticker on it that says Hamleys 55p.
I must have. I used to just. I had a Frog catalogue as well from about 1975, I want to say, and those two just got thumbed endlessly when I was a young lad.
I might go and grab that Eshi catalogue, because you will see what a dilapidated state it's in from years of hard thumbing.
That Eshi Kafir with the the Kefir and the gun sight. I still
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah, they all, because all those box arts did have the gun sight on them.
Right.
It was
And
like
the thing is,
that one stands out, and I don't know why. Because
as a
I just
kid,
love the airplane.
I remember seeing those kits in Hamleys, and they just looked like, because first of all, they were hideously expensive. And I just remember seeing them and thinking these were the most desirable things you can imagine. These were grown-up kits. These were the kits that the adults were making, you see.
Yeah, you aspired.
And I'd be reading the reviews in Airfix magazine, and they'd be saying, and it comes with, you know, kind of like 100 million weapons to hang off of it. And you're just like, oh, God, it's like, you know, it's just like, this sounds brilliant. And this is this curse you age and experience, because now you look at me, you think, yeah, they're not that great, are they?
But that's 45 years of sort of development, isn't it? I mean, I think the first Eschi kit I actually bought and built was from a little shop in Yeovil called Channing's, which is a bicycle shop with a model section, and
like Simpers Importer said.
And I got the Sherman Calliope,
right,
and completely failed to finish that.
Or Calliope, as I still call it.
It's so funny how far we've come, and now we're going back. Like, the history repeats itself, because I could tell you this: I've bought a couple armor kits. I built the Tamiya little the M3, whatever it is, Stuart.
Yeah.
I had like 25, 30 pieces in it, and it went together like a dream. And then I go, and I go, oh, wait a minute. Now I want to build this.
Oh my Lord. We looked at that extensively in Jadlam models, and we're kind of yeah.
You know what I said to myself after I got it home? There's too many pieces.
Yeah, I mean, that's Spencer and I were both looking in the box, and we were both equally intimidated by it.
What kit was that? Sorry, I was doing some admin.
The mini base sea flanker.
Oh, that, yeah.
I'm terrible at this, guys. Sorry.
You've got a Lancaster to finish off, Michael.
Yes, we were. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it?
It's amazing, but like, I guess my point is, we've all gone from this kit's too simple to there's way too much crap in here for me to try to even. Now it's work. In some cases, it turns into, do they really need to have 17 or 18 pieces for a seat? I'm going to buy a quick boost one.
These are the kits that the enthusiast end wanted. We want more detail. We want this and we want that. And it's like,
I'm wondering if aircraft are going the same way that armor did a few years ago, because I think in the last few years, armor kits have started to get a bit simpler again. You know, we kind of peaked with 1,400 part armor kits sort of 8 or 9 years ago. And I think we've been on this sort of slight downward slope where they're getting a little bit simpler again. And I'm wondering if we're just still on the upward slope with aircraft kits before we realise that perhaps that there is such a thing as having too much detail. Yeah. Not too much detail, but too overcomplicated.
Right.
Too much of a good thing.
15-piece landing gear strut.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Yeah. Because now I have more seams to worry about.
Well, that's what I always think, Mike, when I look at injection moldings these days for stuff that is so incredibly, detailed like that. I just look at it and think that's just all seam lines that have got to come off and possibly destroy detail while you're doing it. Exactly. So I kind of look at those, and I look at what what we do with the 3D printers, and think, there's a future for a massive level of detail, but a simple construction.
Right.
Which I think 3D printing is gonna bring us, isn't it?
Well, it's going to definitely alleviate that, and if when I look at like the A10C cockpit that we do, it now because I'm now printing the tub, which was the last part of the resin casting in that set.
Yeah.
That everything in that is designed to drop fit. You don't have to worry about the old Aries fit on with resin. You don't have to worry about the shrinkage. Every single piece is a master. They're all identical.
Yes. As long as the printer works the same as it did last time, the parts will be identical. And as long as I mean, you obviously you have to make sure that the resin you've got is good resin and is not going to vary from batch to batch and stuff like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You'd have to worry about that with casting them, wouldn't you? So the repeatability of 3D printing and the detail levels you can get with it are they're unbeatable, aren't they?
Mike, got a question here from Simon Lewis. He says, Mike, what were the brands getting kids into the hobby in the States? I'm assuming he means when I
was a kid.
Yeah.
Simon, it was really Revell, Monogram, early Monogram. We also had Aurora, believe it or not, back then. And then, once we'd start getting some Airfix in, that was a big one. And then Tamiya was big, believe it or not. I mean, when you look at how old Tamiya is, they have had kits out for 60 years. And some of them, even though they may not hold up to today's standards, are still quality, buildable kits. And there's a reason why they keep them in the line. But not long after that, it turned into we had finally the British invasion showed up, probably as I became a teenager. That and the Japanese invasion. So as a young man, my memories are Revell, Monogram, Aurora, and a smattering of smaller, out of the country sort of manufacturers. Frog started getting big early, from what I remember, and Heller was big too.
Well, you'd have also had, Mike. You'd have had AMT.
We did have AMT, but that was mostly cars and trucks. And I remember the Stagger Wing. It was one of the kits they did.
Yeah.
I think they did the Winnie
May. Nice little model, isn't it? I think that's a nice little model, that Stagger Wing.
Yeah,
and you would have also had the Winnie May.
Yeah, the Winnie May. Did the Gloucester Meteor.
B26.
A few other bits and pieces. Actually, AMT did do a 48 scale B26 Marauder, which amazingly is actually more detailed than the Monogram one.
I actually have it still.
Me too.
In storage, yeah.
Yeah. You also had Johan, whatever you call it. Yeah. You also had Lindbergh.
Well, do we really count them? Do you count Starfix? Anybody?
No, I'm being unfair on Lindbergh.
Lindbergh had the F7U Cutlass, if I recall, didn't they?
They did do a Cutlass.
Yeah, and a Thunder Scepter, didn't they? XF93.
Yeah. Thunder Scepter. Oh, and the AMT did the stupid flapjack thing, the vertical takeoff.
Yes, yeah. The Volt XF.
Remember that? I think I had that kit and I threw it away because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Goodness me, Mike. So we're going to talk about your Matchbox experiences tonight. Oh, actually, we've suddenly got just finding another comment here is blah 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 blah. Andy King says Bandai. There's another brand. Well, Bandai, as we all know on this show, Bandai, biggest kit company in the world, and
have been for decades.
Yes.
Decades. Yeah. It's always the trick question: which is the biggest kit company in Japan, Tamiya or Hasegawa? Neither. It's Bandai. Bandai sell models in eye-watering amounts.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's like my trick question. What two countries does the Severn Bridge span? People say England and Wales. No, it's England. Ooh. I'll explain that after the show, Drew, because you're looking quizzically at me.
It only spans one country.
The old Queen Elizabeth Severn Bridge? It spans England and England because it makes landfall at a place called Beachley, which is the English side of the River Usk. Then there's the little baby bridge you go over the River Usk. River Wye, rather, to get into Wales. So, now Trivial Pursuit, people doing pub quizzes. There you go. Get some angry letters now. So, Mike, we've got some of your Matchbox memories here in no particular order. If you want to call up the first one, and we'll let you talk about it and what it means to you. If you can remember what pictures you sent me.
Yeah, I think I sent you 5 or 6.
You sent me 5, 6.
The first one is going to be the B26.
Wow. What a piece of box art.
So when I mentioned earlier, as a kid, and I guess even as an adult, but as a kid, when you're looking at your allowance money and you walk into a store and they had one of these on the shelf, that is the very first Matchbox kit I ever owned, because I looked at the side of the box, because back, still today, the box art is on the side of the box, the end. And I was like, "Ooh, I got to take a look at this." And it just sold me. I think I paid $5, maybe $6 for that kit. And I know I screwed it up because I tried hand painting it with, if I'm not mistaken, Pactra. You remember Pactra?
Yes.
Chrome silver. And it was a brushstroke extravaganza. Not a seam was touched because I didn't know. I think I was 7 years old at the time. And I painted the canopy black because I didn't understand that you had to paint frames then. But yeah, that box art was, and to this day, is still one of my favorite all-time box arts.
A good piece of Matchbox box art sells a kit itself, doesn't it? It's just,
it really does.
Self-selling, isn't it? It's just, look at it. Why wouldn't you want to take that home with you?
Yeah.
As a kid, and at the time, it was really weird because I was really, really loving, I know that sounds terrible, World War II. I was becoming a history nut at the time. And I guess, with my dad as a Korean War veteran, we always, at the time when I was a kid, he wasn't very old at the time. So he would talk about the war and stuff, and, talk about how a lot of things would come from World War II into the Korean theater. But I didn't know. I was like, well, maybe they flew this in Korea. But that box art is just sublime to me. And, the way, I can't remember the artist's name. Was
Roy
it Ray?
Huxley.
Roy Huxley. It's Ray Cross for the other one, right? For Airfix.
2 Roys.
It's just, everything about it was just build me, buy me. And it was probably a terrible kit, but I didn't care.
It's far from their worst, put it that way.
I think in the hierarchy of B26 kits at the time, it would have been Airfix top in 72nd scale, would have been Airfix top, Matchbox second, and then Revell third by a long way.
But that would be number one. The next one I would call up.
Just going to say, Mike. Matchbox did that nearly 50 years ago. 50 years later.
There it is.
Is that the same aircraft? Actually, I'm just having. Oops, I didn't know. No. Wrong one.
Nope, that's the one I was going to have you call up.
All right, I'm just having a look. 296165. 296. Yeah, Matchbox actually got a few things wrong on that because it did have the yellow nose on it, and also it did have the hair on top behind the cockpit, and the invasion stripes didn't go right up on top of the fuselage. But other than that, I was just being pernickety by the standards of the research that was available at the time. But again, we were talking about Roy Cross the other night, and we were talking about his ability to do, kind of like stress metal and weathering and all that kind of stuff. And that's just, it's sublime. And also, the other thing we talk about is that Roy very quickly cottoned on that he had to compose his pictures to fit, a bit like the other Roy Cross, to fit the stupid shape. And he did. And that's why they were always so dramatic, because space was, the extraness space was then filled up with the branding and the packaging. We'll talk about that one as well, because that's another good example of how Roy has, he's filled the space to fit the packaging. But the Hangar 115. I don't know about you, Drew. I've never had this kit. I never built it.
I didn't have it, but my brother did.
Right.
I can remember coming back from the local Hardesties, it was called, local news agents, one Saturday morning, and my brother had bought it.
So My story about this is probably a little bit weird.
Welcome to the
I
show.
bought this kit because at the time, at 6, 7, 8 years old, I still enjoyed jumping in the bathtub. And my dad had a 350th scale Missouri, I think it was. I still have it. Actually, I could show it to you here shortly. It's just right here on my display case. And I'd float that thing, the Missouri in the bathtub and pretend I was having battles. So I bought this, or my dad bought it for me, because I was like, well, a float plane, I'll put it in the water and it will float. Well, when you put the floats together and you don't really do very well on sealing the whole thing, it just sank. Until it got to the wings. Once it got to the wings, it natural buoyancy because there was enough air still in the fuselage. But yeah, I bought that to be the enemy of my Missouri, and built it completely straight out of the box with, what does it say, 3-color kit. I think it was green, blue, and black, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Everybody said, the Matchbox trench line panel. Didn't care. I was more concerned that how did ladders stay on?
Well, none of us cared about the trench lines when we were 7 years old.
No, because you know what? It was just cool. And again, looking at that box art and then me looking at, I got to grab it. I'm going to grab it right now. Hang on.
Mike has left the building.
Yeah, here. If you put the camera on, John.
Yeah.
I still have the Missouri.
Ooh.
That my dad built when I was all of 7 years old or 6 years old.
Good grief.
There's a lot of broken stuff on here. The black line is actually pinstriping that he put on from cars. So yeah, one of my prized possessions. Everything's broke on it, but I don't care. It floated in the bathtub. So I know
all you needed.
What's that?
But I can remember spending time with float planes trying to get them to float, and you actually ended up having to ballast the floats,
right,
to make them float.
They'd also go tail heavy.
Yeah, so you'd have to ballast. We spent, I'm sure me and my brother spent hours trying to get something to float one time, and tried to put it together so it would float in the bathtub.
Nope.
Oh dear.
So relatable story. I mean, when you really
absolutely. And I also I've always liked the Hangar 115 as well. It's a really interesting aeroplane.
Well, those gigantic struts from the floats.
Yeah.
Look at those things.
I often wonder what its performance would have been like if it had undercarriage, retractable undercarriage.
I agree, because it looks like a pretty aerodynamic airplane.
Yeah.
Back in those days. No,
I mean, I used to think it was like a float plane version of the Hangar 111, but it's really not.
Right.
No, it's a hefty old thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I bet the thing weighed a ton.
Yeah, I never built that one, and I've never. The funny thing is, almost get your teeth in, man. None of the German. let's try pitching that a bit lower. None of the German twin-engine kits that Matchbox did. I've never built any of them. Not a Robbie sausage. None of them. Not the Hangar 111. Not the Messerschmitt 110. The 410. The Hangar 115. The other one they did. I never built the Dornier. Is it the Dornier 18? I know it's a single engine, but the Dornier 18 float plane. Never built any of them.
Yeah, and then the what else did they do? You just put the JU-88s and 188s, right? Didn't they do those?
Yeah, JU-188. Never built that. No, like I say, never built any of their twins. The only one I ever built as a kid would have been the Focke-Wulf 190, and that was it. Yeah, no. Right, Mr. Reeves, next on your list.
What did I send you? The Strike Master? Or
yeah, we'll talk about the Strike Master. Oh, what a
That's another
kit.
piece of box art, isn't it?
No.
You know why I bought that kit as a kid? I actually thought it was a T-37.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No,
I was just dumb, and I'm like, well, it's just a T-37 with a different name.
Yeah, it's a license built T-37.
Yeah, and really, I mean, that box art is pretty compelling too. Low level firing rockets apparently through the water. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, I remember getting that kit and bringing it home and opening it up and going, that's it.
Yeah.
There's like 9 pieces in this box.
Yeah. I built that kit a few times as a kid.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at some photographs of the sprues here. There's the wing upper and lower halves each side, a tailplane, undercarriage, canopy, fuselage halves, seats, but molded as one, a pilot, rockets. Do you know what? That's rather naughty of Matchbox. Because
Interestingly, this is one of those pieces of art that, like the Buccaneer, had something on the box that isn't in the kit.
yeah, and that's the rocket pods.
Yeah, it's like their Buccaneer had all the bombs under them, and that wasn't in the kit either.
No, it's interesting because it shows it firing what's like a Matra or a Sneb pod of some sort.
Yeah, and it comes with Sura rockets.
Yeah, they're like a little stick rockets.
Yeah, which you can see on the aircraft behind there, like second aircraft.
I'm also amazed, and I could be wrong. I don't know about too much history on the Strike Master. Last time I checked, that was not an afterburning engine in that thing.
No. No, in fact, the engine in the Strike Master Stroke Jet Provost was just known as a fuel to noise converter.
Right, like a T-37.
Because it developed very little thrust. So, a Viper, wasn't it?
Yes, I think
Viper engine.
Yeah, I think my garden incinerator probably has a greater thrust ratio than the engine on a Jet Provost. So.
Well, it was originally designed as an engine just for drones, wasn't it? And then found its way into various other applications.
I think it was originally developed as an engine for hand dryers in toilets. So
yeah.
So yeah, do you know what? I love the Strike Master. I love the Jet Provost. Could tell a story about how a few years ago, AN Kit Company was going to do a Jet Provost 5, and 2 modelers in Somerset said, "No, do a JP3 instead," and so they did.
Who was that then? I don't remember who that could have been.
I don't remember that either.
I stand by our decision.
I stand by our decision as well.
I stand by our decision.
Our decision.
Yes. We will circle back to the 5 at some point.
I would love to see a 5. I would love to see a 5 because I tell you what, that New Zealand scheme is.
Yeah, it was a great scheme.
I would say this is when it comes to the Strike Master / Jet Provost 5, and the detailed differences between the two of them, I think, can be accommodated within the same kit. Wouldn't you agree, Drew?
Oh yeah.
Isn't it a license built JP anyway? JP5?
Yeah, it's the JP5. Yeah, it was the attack version of the JP5 essentially.
Right.
But when you look at if you look at the color schemes of the JP5, but you look at the color schemes of the other air arms that have operated the Strike Master, it's like, goodness me, what a colourful little aeroplane.
Yeah, it was that kind of last flush of empire sort of thing, where an awful lot of countries bought a very few of them each. Yeah. So there's a lot of colour schemes.
Yeah, it was a bit like a loyalty scheme, buy one get one free. So
right,
yeah,
what I have two left.
2 left. So you've got
I've got the
one and a Decky one. Oh
yes.
I built this as a kid.
Me
Everybody
too.
built that. Yeah, I built that as a kid.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the most plentiful, multiple on shelves Matchbox kit I remember seeing as a young man.
Right.
And again, the box art, I'll say it forever. The box art sells.
Yep.
Especially to the young modeler. I think the older seasoned modeler in us, it's what's going to sell it is the review I see on multiple places. But as a young kid with a little bit of money in your pocket, you walk into a hobby shop and there's this beautifully ugly airplane.
Hey,
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a lot of British stuff that are like that. Let's be
Yeah, but
honest.
that's local to us. That was grown. That was grown in this county. I'll have you know.
You know, if I look straight out of my window, I can see Lysander Road. There you go.
But you know what? I bought it and built it, so give me that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get my head around the fact that you had this sort of access to Matchbox kits, Mike. It's
Yeah,
just it's a real surprise to me. It really is.
But
A delight. A
in all
delight.
honesty, like I said earlier, that was very limited. When they'd get Matchbox in at a couple of our places, most notably, my favorite place was called Toys by Roy. It was a toy store inside of a big, giant shopping mall. And they had 2 aisles of model kits. And they had the best stocked shelves of all the hobby shops in town with model kits that I remember. And when you'd see something like Matchbox come in, they'd probably put 40 or 50 Matchbox kits on the shelf because that's all they got.
Right.
But most of them were, 10 of them were Lysanders, 5 of them were P51s or, whatever. Very, very limited in your selection. So having built a couple of Matchbox kits and just loving the box art, I was sold every time I saw them. I would walk by that monogram F6F Hellcat with the, dropping bomb and retractable landing gear. Even though it was less money for a bigger kit, I would grab something like this. And if you look at the history of me in my modeling life, I rarely ever, even to this day, build the standard American subject.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is everybody does it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be that guy that was a little bit different. Even as a young kid, I'm not going to buy the P47 from Johan when I can get a Lysander from Matchbox because it's different. And
I was very, very similar in that regard to once I started getting my hands on Hella kits in the kind of early 1980s.
mm-hmm.
It was like, well, I'm not going to build, I'm going to build another Spitfire. I'm going to build a Messerschmitt 109B.
Right.
Or I'm going to build a Focke-Wulf 56 Stoser. It's all these kind of like, I'm going to be different to everybody else. And I completely understand that.
And like I said, even to this day, now I've diversified my building from, I've always been a modern jet guy, mainly with a caveat. When I was younger, it was World War II, like I said earlier. But now, I'm building, I look at my display case right now. I've got 2 cars, a helicopter, an English Electric Lightning, a Stuart tank, a Tornado, a Javelin, a Kaffir, a Wyvern, a MiG-25, an A4, an F-14, and a tractor from 1918.
Excellent.
I'm learning that I'm really liking diversifying.
Yep.
And maybe part of that is just doing the business that I do. It's kind of nice to step back and not do a jet all the time.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Like I say, that's the thing I try and do is just kind of not build 2 of the same thing,
right.
In a row. I mean, I'm building this Matchbox Hellcat at the moment, albeit very slowly, but once Matchbox May's out of the way, blimey, what am I going to be going back to? Actually, I'm going to be faffing around with my little mini art Tempo 3-wheeler, but I should be doing something completely different by then. I just
mini
need
art
to.
is so much fun.
Oh God, yeah, I love mini art.
And bless their hearts. I don't want to get into politics, but it's so great to see them still continuing to do what they do.
They're hanging in there. And in fact, Drew, I did get a message this week to say that our Wingsy order is winging its way to us.
Hey, speaking of Wingsy, Jonathan,
go on.
I literally on eBay 2 days ago, and I got my shipping notification this morning. bought a Wingsy 48 scale 109 E3. Because
E4 coming.
Yeah, you got the E4 coming, and I've got the Mitsubishi Claude. Nice. No.
I've heard their 109s are the best ever.
Yes, they're the best 109Es ever. Yeah, without a doubt. I'm really looking forward to continuing to support our Ukrainian brothers.
And Jonathan, we don't have to do the last one if you don't want to. I mean, if you guys,
we've got two more here. We've got this one. Which
that's the holy grail.
Which as a kid would have been an absolutely awesome stuff, because this would have been straight out of Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds. You know,
the thing was with that kit, I looked for that kit for about 4 years after I knew it existed, and nobody ever seemed to get it in stock.
No, and
it was just impossible to get hold of.
No, it was. But this is one of those ones that you look at it and you think it's so sci-fi. But goodness me, that color scheme, what a nightmare.
Not with a cameo, Cutter.
Well, yeah, but we didn't. Back in 1978, Michael, we didn't have cameos.
You know what? Back in 1978, Mike was breaking out his paintbrushes with all the wrong colors.
Exactly.
So was Drew. Hey, there we
go. But let me explain my love of this kit. This is literally, no joke, the absolute most favorite airplane I've ever looked at in my entire life. I'm an F-15 guy, through my Air Force life, F-16s as well. But to me, there's nothing more brutally mean looking than a Saab Viggen in that scheme. And back in the day, even when I built this kit afterwards, when Eschi came out with their 48 scale ones.
Oh, yes.
There was a time as a young adult when I was so obsessed with the Eschi kits. And remember when they were going for stupid big money on eBay? I had 30 of them.
Right.
I have 0 of them now because they're all Tarangas. Is that how we say that?
Yeah, Tarangas, yeah.
Tarangas,
yeah. And then I've got 2 of the 32nd scale. I can't think of the name.
Jetmads?
Jetmads. I have 2 of the Jetmads kits, which basically were a house payment. But yeah, to me, that airplane is just a jet airplane that can back up after it landed. Come on.
I mean, from my first interest in aeroplanes at 7 years old, the Viggen was one of those aircraft that was very much in the public eye, even outside Sweden, all through Europe. There was always articles on it in magazines and stuff like that. So it was it was a very, very early favorite of mine as well.
Yeah, that's a fear in other pilots' eyes airplane, I think. It wasn't the quickest turning. Look at that thing.
It's just a great airplane.
Everything about it is just brutally gorgeous.
But it was designed, people say it wasn't that good at this and it wasn't that good at that, but it was designed for one customer, specifically for one customer to fit their requirements. And that was it. And
just like the Draken at the time.
Yeah.
It was designed to
well for very nearly 40 years.
It was designed to fit in mountains and drive down motorways, and it fulfilled its requirement.
And when you think about the dichotomy of the Draken and the Viggen, it's very much F-15, F-16 to the United States. You have air superiority, big turning, big airplane with big radar, and a smaller one that could penetrate and get in there quick and get out. I absolutely love the Viggen. In fact, the top 3 sexiest airplanes in my life, I would put Viggen 1, F-15 Eagle, the Charlie model, none of the fat girls, and We don't need the Fat Lindas, the real F-15. And then number 3, the Dassault Rafale, with a Mirage F1 close fourth.
What about that in your list, Mike?
It's cute. I saw a lot of Danish ones when I was at Bitburg. They would come in smaller than what you think.
Oh, yeah, it's tiny airplane.
My overwhelming memory, because we used to see an awful lot of Danish ones at air shows and stuff.
Just beat to crap.
My overwhelming, well, the later ones in high gloss were really, really clean, but all I remember was they never sat level. They always sat looking from the front, starboard side low.
Yep.
And you looked at it, and it was the shocks on the legs. One was always not. I don't know if one of the tanks, because they had the Danish ones had the big belly tanks.
Yeah,
I don't know if one of those was generally left fuller than the other one, but it always leaned, probably getting on for a foot lower on the starboard side to the port side.
It's just so fabulously stealthy looking, though, isn't it?
When that thing would come into Bitburg, we always said we have, they would usually bring in 2. The Danish guys would. We have 2 Batmobiles inbound, because it reminds you of a Batmobile in some weird way, especially in that dark green camouflage that they had. It's an awesome airplane.
Absolutely fabulous. And then your final choice for tonight, we're actually going up a scale here. And we've just been looking at some of the most aerodynamically beautiful aircraft of all time. There's this as well.
And then we have the T6 Texan with a gun.
A T6 Texan with a gun. Or yes, exactly. A T6 Texan with a gun. I never owned this, never built it, but I've seen pictures of it. I saw Mike Williams put his picture up of the one that he won as a model show when he was a teenager. And from seeing photographs of the model, the one thing that does impress me is that Matchbox we were talking about this during the week, Drew. We were talking about Lancasters and how older kits can kind of capture that kind of the look of the aircraft with all the raised rivets and everything.
Yeah.
And this captured the look of the Dauntless with all that, because the Dauntless is a fairly agricultural airplane. It didn't need to go fast; it just needed to drop bombs. And and when the Matchbox kit is all kind of like raised rivets and things and whatnot, but to my eye, it's prototypical. But Mike, how did this find its way into your hands then as a youth?
Funnily enough, Jonathan, I lied the other night when I said I don't have any more Matchbox kits. I have this one.
Mm-hmm.
I never built it. It was one of those kits that I think I got birthday money.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, no joke, this might have been $21.
Right.
And at that time, very expensive, right?
Yeah.
And I got it home. I opened it up and was immediately overwhelmed by how many parts there were.
Mm-hmm.
So that kit to this day sits in my collection, and I kind of want to build it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's, like you said, it's such an agricultural, airplane. You can almost see it with a crop duster, thing on the bottom of it. And like I said, it screams T6 Texan to me just in the overall shape.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it doesn't share a whole lot with that, but I thought, in fact, I know when I bought this, I bought it because of the movie Midway.
Mm.
That terrible,
Yes.
Was it Henry Fonda?
Oh no, I think he may be in it. We'll come to the bit at the end with Charlton Heston, but yeah,
Charlton Heston.
That's it.
Yeah, so I bought it because of that, or I didn't buy it. I'm sorry, I got it as a gift because I told my mom and dad I want the airplane that was at Midway.
Right.
And Next thing I
And they
know,
bought you a zero.
thank
Bought
God
you a
they did.
Texan.
No, they found this because I showed them this is what I want. In
Right.
fact, I know I had a Matchbox catalog, and they told me circle everything you want. Chances
Right.
are, if I look back at it, I circled everything because at the
Because you're
time,
an optimist.
like we talked about, as a kid, you're so impressionable, and box art sells. I don't even know what this box art really is, other than it looks like they're taken off from a beach. I don't know, but it was an airplane that just it stuck with me, and now I still have. I mean, I've got this. I've got a couple of the Accurate Miniatures kits. Didn't Italeri re-release it or Academy?
They both re-released it, I think. The Academy one is available currently.
Yeah, I think I've got one or two of those. So that's another subject for another day. We need to have a show on, hey, let's get rid of half our stash that we'll never get to because we're getting old.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we're going to have a talk about Accurate Miniatures.
Well, you know what? I would love to have a talk about Accurate Miniatures and Bill Bosworth and that whole, sad debacle, which produced some amazing models, but that's a subject for another day, right? No, the Dauntless has always been one of my, in fact, other than the Hellcat, the Dauntless is my favorite World War II Navy airplane. A lot of people are going to lean towards Corsair for sure, maybe even P-38, but these, the Dauntless and the Hellcat, to me, won the war for the Navy in the Pacific.
I've always said the Hellcat, haven't I? I've maintained the Hellcat is probably the top one or two most important fighter aircraft of World War II.
I would say of all time.
Possibly, yeah. I like the fact that the Dauntless kind of it's a little bit of an unknown, but more than a few Zero pilots bit off more than they could chew taking on the Dauntless because it was extremely maneuverable and.
They could pop those dive. They could pop the dive brakes in a turn, and actually be able to almost stall the airplane. And maybe in many cases they would stall the airplane and get it restarted, but they could outturn the Zero with them. I read a book on that, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, a phenomenal aeroplane, and I think it's an attractive aeroplane as well. I've always thought it was. I don't know if well proportioned is the right word, but everything looks right on it to me.
Right. It's got a classic. You look at it and go, this was a World War II airplane. Yeah. It amazes me.
I must get the Flyhawk 72nd.
I mean, how many times? Actually, I would imagine some of the gunners probably shot that vertical tail.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure there was more than a few of those ended up with self-induced bullet holes in them,
or even self-induced kills.
Possibly, yeah.
I'm just going to say
aeroplane.
This kit did come with obviously US Navy markings. Also,
the French one, wasn't it?
French
I think so, French
and New Zealand.
Yeah,
very international. But yeah, it's never got around to booing one of these. But like I say, I saw Mike Williams posted a picture of the one that he won a competition with. I've only ever seen good things about it. Really, I mean, considering its age.
I think this may be their most well-detailed kit they ever did.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's certainly kind of like they pulled their A game out on this. The Spitfire, their 30 seconds ago, Spitfire's a bit. The Lysander's okay. I think they said Sea Vixen. It's the Venom they did, the Sea Venom rather. That's the 109's quite nice. The Tiger Moth is very nice, but the Dauntless, by all accounts, is actually quite superb.
Puma was nice as well, wasn't it? I think the Puma was quite nice.
Oh, and the Puma, yeah, the Puma's very nice as well. Yeah.
Yep, I had that at one point, I think. And Jonathan, you could tell me if I'm wrong. I think this came out in the early 80s, not the early 70s. So they were starting to build their line. And then at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Airfix was starting their 24 scale stuff. And Matchbox was like, well, we're not going to do 24 scale, but we can see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the direct
the
result
is,
of, hey, we can get just as much detail on 32nd scale kit.
Yeah, there was a bit of a lag there because Airfix, their first 24 scale kit came out in 1970.
So was that early?
Yeah, that was 2/3 years before Matchbox released their kits. It would have been 3 years because they were released actually in April 1973. Matchbox started doing their 32nd scale kits round about 1978-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the history lesson because it to me it's just as a kid it just all blurred, you know.
Yeah, I think they wanted to get into the market with big aircraft, big kits. But I think Matchbox looked at the market and thought, do you know what? Everybody's plumping for 32nd scale. We'll do 32nd scale. Well, that Airfix kind of like, we'll let that line kind of,
We'll give them the 24th scale territory.
Yeah, they can have the 24 scale market. So,
and I know we're running short on time, but I guess when you look at,
sorry,
when you look at a company going, okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at Border Model right now doing 35th scale airplanes.
Yeah. We've talked about that on the show, and it's that weird kind of dichotomy.
I simultaneously badly want that Stuka, but don't.
Yeah, it's kind of like, are there enough armor modelers who are interested in building aircraft in their scale? Or are there enough aircraft modelers who want to build an aircraft in an armor scale? Because I know people, I know one of the things that it was a comment.
I would say no and no.
Yeah, it was one of the comments I frequently saw when Border announced their 35th scale Junkers 87, and people were going, "Oh, you can put it in a diorama with a T-34." How? How does that work? Are you going to have a diorama that is, 30 feet long with a T-34 at one end and a stick? Unless you've got a diorama where literally there is the T-34 and there is the Stuka like skimming it at treetop height. How does that work as a diorama?
Right. And at the same time, when you go, oh, we're going to do it in 35th scale so 35th scale figure painters can have a diorama. Can't 35th scale figure painters do 32nd scale figures? Is it that much different?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah, it just seems kind of odd to me.
It is one of those. I mean, we've had this with helicopters as well, haven't we? This sort of 35th, 32nd scale. Mm-hmm. I would rather we stuck to 32nd for aircraft.
I think it gets to a point now, Drew, right, where it's just these are the established scales that everybody builds in this particular type of genre.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those little things where ICM did a 32nd scale Cobra, and then a couple of months later said, we're also going to do it in 35th. And I'm like, what's the point? It's one of the few times with ICM in the last few years I've really gone, I don't get it. What are you doing?
Yeah. We're gonna kick up the dimensions by 0.22 and call it good.
I was just going to say, we've got established scales, and it's like, right, finally, everything's settled down now. We've got established scales, and then suddenly somebody goes, yeah, do you know what? 156, that's a good one to go for. Yeah. And it's like, oh, really? Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at that Rubicon range of stuff that they're bringing out at the moment, and I'm seeing all these things they're doing, these figures and sets. I'm thinking, these are great. If only they were 48 scale. Right. But that's me being me, right? That 156 scale range, which is all tied into these kind of war games and stuff, whatever. Whoa, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Yeah. What I want and what I think about it is utterly immaterial. 156 scale sells, and it sells.
They're selling it's justified itself, hasn't it?
Exactly. I'm just going to quickly say Midway. God, Midway. Charlton Heston at the end. Spoilers, everybody. Spoilers. Charlton Heston doesn't make it through to the end of the film. He's one of the lucky ones. You should try watching it. Charlton Heston, at the end of the film, he's limping back in his damaged.
It was Dauntless.
It's his damaged Dauntless, which
No, Hellcat.
prior to coming in as he grimaces, metamorphoses into a Helldiver. And then when it finally hits the wire, it's a panther.
That's right.
And it's like...
I'm sure I've seen a Tomcat ramp strike turn into that panther as well.
The Tomcat ramp strike was in Hunt for Red October. Because they said one of their Tomcats has been clipped by something, and then they're watching it on the television screen, and then you see a panther.
And that becomes a panther, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's like... I actually, when we had Kim Smith on the show in November last year, because she obviously worked on the film, she worked on the submarine models for October, and I did say to her off screen, that's always bugged me. You had Industrial Light and Magic were doing the visual effects for Hunt for Red October, right? Because this scene was actually being played out on a television monitor, they could have just got a shop-built F-14 kit, chucked it across a table, got Joe Viscasil to blow it up, and then that's it. It would have passed muster on a little television screen, because at least it would have been recognising an F-14. But a panther, even in the cinema, I remember sitting there going, right, okay, fine. It's been good up to now, but you've kind of jumped the shark a bit there.
And then you go,
Midway.
Looks like it's
and
time
also,
to go.
Yeah, Midway also does borrow.
That panther walked away from that as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Because he caught the barrier.
Yeah.
He got the banner. But that film Midway also borrows footage from Tora Tora Tora. At least not one of the sequences where the Japanese dive bombers are coming in. You can actually see the cranes in the background, and it's supposed to be Midway, and also from a Toho Japanese film about Midway. They borrowed a lot of visual effects shots from that. And the whole thing looks like it's been shot on a television movie budget, because it's got that horrible flat 1970s light. It's a terrible film. I love Drew and I. We sat. Remember on Christmas, Drew? We sat and we watched Tora Tora Tora.
Yes,
and that's a great film. I know a lot of critics don't like it. I think it's a terrific film. But Midway, oh God, honestly.
Well, and even the new Midway, don't even get me started.
Oh, that's Roland Emmerich, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, he went down.
Anything else cool going on? You guys got going on?
Matchbox May, Eshy Equinox.
Yeah, Eshy Equinox. I got that this week.
July.
Turned up from Andy yesterday.
Are you going to go to the workshop camera for that?
We can go to the workshop camera.
Let's
Just
go to the
don't
workshop
want to see
camera,
my face anymore.
There we go.
Yeah, I got this yesterday. So this is the dual kit of the new Edward CS199. Now, I have to say, as somebody whose heart is in 72nd, I still wish it was done in 48 first to fit in with the whole range. But I have to say, in 72nd, this is just an absolute delight of a model. Well, pretty much what we expect from Edward these days, isn't it? But you get two different sets of fuselages there for the sliding canopy and the Erla hood, the World War II style canopy. And it's fully riveted, different depths of rivets, different inscribed detail and stuff. It's just absolutely phenomenally nice. And then multiple sprues here of these are all the same, these sprues, so there's two of each of these sprues. So wings and flying surfaces on that one, and then all of your ancillary details here: drop tanks, prop, all the interior and stuff, cannon gondolas for under the wings, stuff like that.
We've got an interloper.
Oh dear!
Come on.
Let him in.
I gotta go.
And then obviously a canopy sprue there with 3 different styles of canopy, including the blown sliding type and the Erla hood.
I like the broken off the sprue one better.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Well, that speeds up building, doesn't it? None of that
You're not
faffing
really.
around.
That's
You're not
right.
helping, Mike. You're not helping.
Who needs clippers? How are the decals?
Let me just hush up. Wait.
Wow.
Oh, God. You let the American on. Anyway, I will say the instructions are in quite a low quality matte paper, which is unusual for Edward. Can you see that?
Yeah, well, it's cost savings.
It's yeah, I mean it's fairly traditional Edward style. It's got all your options are covered as you go through, and then color scheme wise, well, brace yourself. So you've got 1 check, 2, 3 check.
Okay, they're okay.
4 checks a bargain.
Oh,
5,
here we go. Sliding
5
canopy
check.
one. Oh, yes.
6,
Red
7
nose one.
check,
Yep.
and all in various sort of greens. 8, 9 check. That one's nice. That's got a variety of different. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's got
I
lots
quite
of-
like the Czech police one there on the
Is
right.
the nose black?
No, it's green. It's
Oh, okay.
I did that scheme on a 109G a couple of years ago. That police scheme. And then so we got those, and then we've got 1, 2, and then there's 3 Israeli. So there's 12 different schemes included in the box.
Good grief.
Including 3 Israeli ones. So yeah, I mean, now
That's fine in theory, but
bear with me. So then you've got the obvious, you've got a couple of etched frets there, masks for the canopies and stuff. Right, so the decals.
Here we go.
And herein, so you've got one main sheet, and
do we actually call Edward decals, or are they just stickers now?
well, so you've got a pair of stencil sheets duplicated there for it because there's 2 kits, and then you've got this absolutely enormous decal sheet for all the other variants on it. Now, they are, what can you say?
Well, the size says it all.
I was trying to. They're better. They're getting better.
Right.
The printing looks to me to be a bit better than it has been on previous kits. Looking at it, the actual carrier film looks a bit thinner.
No.
It's still a little bit raggedy around the edges, but not like the early ones were. I kind of think they might be going through a bit of an evolution like they did with their kits, where they're sort of dialing it in as they go.
Mm-hmm.
The shame being that we're getting an awful lot of substandard decal sheets while they dial it in are going into going into great kits. We're getting so decals in fabulous kits.
It does seem an odd dichotomy that they are really pushing the plastic side of it to new heights, but it's almost like, is it cost saving in order to do that they're kind of
what I'm led to believe, John, is it's literally trouble getting slots with cartograph.
Yeah, that's my fault. That is.
And I did I did use some of these some of the newer style Edward ones on the Zero that I built last month.
Mm-hmm.
And they performed better than the original Edward new style did. I'm still not convinced, put it that way. But
hey, Drew.
Yes,
I'm
Mike.
just gonna say, bottom left. Okay.
Oh, Drew, you're in trouble. Check us.
Yeah, well, I saw that.
Yeah.
We've always, I think we even used those two interchangeably even before the country split up.
It's always been shorthand in this country.
It's
for
always Czech has always been a shorthand in the UK for Czechoslovakian, and then Czech and Slovak, and then Czech and Slovakian. So I know what you're saying. But Czech has pretty much always been shorthand here for Czechoslovakia as well.
Same with the States.
Yeah.
I think that Czech's bounced. So
they call it the Czech Republic for a reason.
Also, Chris says that IAF scheme with the writing in the middle of the start is actually an interesting one. Supposedly, it's the name of the pilot's girlfriend. Ooh.
Yeah. So hopefully you can see they look a little bit better. They're getting, you can see the carrier film there on those numbers. It's a lot closer and sharper than it has been.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it out there, but just looking at them and looking how glossy they are, they kind of look like 1980s KP decals.
They're still the colours, the blue and the reds, especially. They are much better than I've seen in the last few sheets, but they're still a little bit dot matrixy.
Hey, Jonathan. You know what they remind me of myself is, and Spencer could attest to this. I don't know if he's actually doing a monogram version of the 106 or the Revell version. Same kit, different decals. Mm-hmm. The old monogram kits. Remember when they did all the Century series, everybody was complaining that their decals were so thick and they got like this milky kind of cover. That's exactly what the Edward decals remind me of.
Yep. Yeah,
I very much remain to be convinced, but I will say that these do look better.
I'm sure you will let us know.
Well, we're joined tonight by Mr. Pollard, who's just obviously finished his drum practice. Are you getting better?
Yes, it was good. Yeah, really good. Yeah, a fully timed rehearsal, which was completely exhausting, I have to say. Trying to work out how songs fit into the set and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just thought I'd come and say hello. I haven't spoken to Mike for a while, and thank you for the stuff that he sent to me and everything. And then basically just go and get some food. That was all it was really. To answer your question, Mike, the kit that I've got is actually a monogram. It's Monograms 106.
Right.
But I've had it for ages, so it's the decals are not as good as they could be, but they were second generation monogram decals, so it's not the original.
Original kit. Yeah, weird milky ones. Because I sent you the 101, didn't I?
That one.
Yeah. So you don't have the one with the bull on the tail.
No, I don't. The one with the bull on the tail that I only recognised as a bull about 4 months ago after looking at that marking for the thick end of 30 years and wondering what the hell it was. That one. Yeah.
And the one that you promptly shared that piece of information, and everybody else went, "Oh yeah,
it's a bull." And it was only when we enlarged the actual image, people went, "Oh, that's an eye. Oh, I see. And those are horns." Okay,
right.
I'm slightly concerned about those decals as well, Drew, because I've just bought. I think we talked about this when we were in Jadland. I've just bought a Hellcat. An Edward Hellcat, the sort of the reissued one with a 3-tone schema -3, and I'm concerned with the decals that are in that. But fortunately, I think there's not a lot in them. But I've heard such horror stories about these damn Edward decals that I am.
I mean, what it comes down to is that 50% of people say they're the best thing ever. 50% of people say they're the worst thing ever. If you've got a split 50-50 straight down the middle, there's a problem.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
If 95% of people are saying they're great and 5% of people are saying they're really, really bad, then arguably that 5% of people are doing something wrong.
The frustration, I think, is pretty much like the frustration that Wingnut Wings had, in that the decals in Edward kits always used to be superb. The decals in Wingnut Wings kit always used to be superb, and then they got them printed by somebody else just before they went out of business. They were absolute garbage, and so when you're making a big play of the fact that there's a lot of color schemes in there, although I'd argue in that 199 that you've got, there's only one color scheme. It's just a variation, no, perhaps two, if I'm being generous, but a variation of markings in there. But if you're making a play of it, I mean, Edward's kits have often got really cool color schemes in them, haven't they? And some of their kits have got cool color schemes in, and you don't have aftermarket alternatives. So,
well, I mean that's the problem. Like I say, Spence, the problem is that we've got, although they're getting better, we've gone from getting cartograph decals in rapidly improving Edward kits to Edward kits that are absolutely at the cutting edge of modern technology with poor decals now.
yeah,
It's just
a bit
incredibly
sad, isn't it?
frustrating.
And I would say that, if some people, if we have to look at the spectrum, right, of model builders, a lot of people are going to buy, let's say, this kit, right?
Yeah.
I think it's got five schemes. A lot of them may not, that may be their budget. They may not have the wherewithal or the need to buy an aftermarket sheet. Maybe they like the markings that are in the kit. So if Edward is going to make decals on their own, they have to step up their game, or people will stop buying their kits that can't afford to buy all the other accoutrement that goes with it. That was fancy, I know.
I think
Mr. Horn, yeah.
I think with Edward as well, they do seem to have some confidence in their decals. If they didn't have confidence in their decals, they wouldn't be releasing sheets as aftermarket products. I noticed they
I mean, it kind of adds to the
Seems-
problem almost, doesn't it? But it kind of, and the other thing I think is Edward is so prolific with special boxings which are released specifically for the color schemes that if you're going to do that, then
Asagawa.
yeah, just like Hasegawa, yeah. If you're going to do that, your decals have to be top notch.
John Binford makes a very good point. He says the adding of a procedure to decaling, I think, is the problem with most.
Agreed.
That's an interesting.
I mean, it's that is the problem, but also the problem is that procedure is not foolproof or easily repeatable for a lot of people.
Right.
I've had four or five decals it's worked brilliantly on. I think, this is going magnificently well. Pull off the fifth one, it just pulls up a huge chunk of the marking, and you're like,
right. But at the same point, to John's point, in some way, maybe a little bit different. You look at the Quinta decals, the Red Fox, cockpit stuff, where people were like, I don't even know how to do this because it's new. And I've seen Mike Williams, who's on, I know right now, you yourself, Drew, I'm sure Spencer, and I don't know about you, Jonathan, have all tried them. I haven't yet. I've got a bunch.
I've not tried them yet, but I do have them. You're talking about Quinta's deck. These are the ones for the Tamir F14. They're mind-boggling in terms of their complexity.
I've got that set as well.
I mean,
but that said, when you spend $35 on a cockpit decal set, and you don't really know how to use them, and then you screw it up because you're not really sure, that turns into these are crap in your mind, which isn't true. They have a system, but I think, to Drew's point, I think with Edward decals, they're just not consistent.
The process of removing the carrier film, to start with, they said no, that's not what the intention is, and then they kind of in typical Vladimir style, he kind of rode that back a couple of months later and said, well, it's actually a technique, here's how you do it, and kind of posted stuff on the Edward newsletter about how to take the how to remove the carrier film from the markings after you've applied them. So it's one of those typical Edward things, right? I mean, I love Edward, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Edward. I think they're doing magnificent work, but quite often they're not very good at the message they send.
They MiG-21
it.
They MiG-21 it.
Well, the MiG-21 is my pet. Don't John, you have to just move on.
Let's move on.
All right.
Not to mention the slightly oversized Messerschmitt 109 G10.
Yeah,
which was also a classic example of how to balk a message, and sort of not actually. Although I have to say, I've got that kit. I really like it. I'm sure that if I completed it, and and put it on a desk somewhere,
You wouldn't even know.
But
And the
it
most
was the
thing
way
is
that they
no one
went.
else would know.
No.
But it was the way they spent 2 months trying to convince you that it was all intentional.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it was a wrong.
Before going, oh yeah, all right, we pulled it from sale and we're completely retooling it. And
believe me,
that 109, the retooled 109 F/G kit is one of my favorite Eduard kits. It's an absolute beauty of the model. It really, really is. I've built many of them. Which is why I hope that 199 was going to be in 48th initially, because it would have dropped in with that series perfectly. But yeah, it's this typical Eduard balking the message, and rowing back all the time. Just tell us the truth. Just tell us the truth to start with. You had trouble getting slots with Cartograph, and this is cheaper, so we've done it.
Well, and let's look at it this way: who's left other than Cartograph? Microscale's basically done.
Zanchetti?
There's Zanchetti in Italy. You've got TechMod in Poland, Boa in Poland.
Let's talk about big names, though, big producers.
Well, the thing is, Mike, people like TechMod are big names. They are producing decals for a lot of people now. They're a big concern. Sorry?
Fantasy Print Shop?
Fantasy Print Shop. I really don't like their markings and their decals anyway, but that's another. I don't like the way they perform.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if you're a manufacturer and you're running a 20,000 print run of kits, 50,000, whatever Eduard or whoever does, other than Cartograph, who's out there big that can handle that anymore?
Zanchetti, pretty much.
Yeah, Zanchetti. Yeah.
I would argue that TechMod have the ability, if they do it correctly and scale.
They don't have the reputation yet.
They could be the next. They could be the next big player.
Numbers.
The problem that you've got is that we're in that it's very much like a microcosm of the industry in general, in that there is more and more. That was an awful sentence construction there. There are more and more kit manufacturers out there basically wanting the attention of smaller and smaller core of manufacturers, producers. So for every new kit manufacturer that comes out that wants decal sheets producing, you've still only got that small core of manufacturers that can deal with that product. It's exactly the same thing as, we've got the same number of model makers from around the world, and yet they're trying to, the attention of them is trying to be grabbed by a greater and greater number of kit manufacturers producing more and more products. The slices of the pie is getting smaller and smaller as we go on. And I think that's been part of the problem. These kit companies, Eduard are a very good example of this, because they produce lots of variations of the same kit over and over again. They repeat the process. Then they also not only repeat actual kits in the same boxes with the same markings, they'll then modify it slightly and then create a completely new run with another 12 options in there. And those
but then they'll market it with it's a Profi pack or it's a weekend. It's that's the thing that Eduard is specializing in, right? So what, to Spencer's point, I know we're running way late. I'm sorry, John.
No, you're fine.
It would be like, let's say Hasegawa said, "Hey, we're gonna do another 20,000 48 scale A4K Kahu kits," and they came to me and said, "Hey, Mike, we'd like to include your resin." Nope. There's no freaking way I could support that. So when you look at, like Spencer says, and I know I'm using myself as a dumb example, but when you look at what Spencer says, TechMod might not be able to handle, Arma and, the 900 other cottage smaller companies that are out there needing decal sets. So what we essentially need is someone to come up with another decal company.
Good comment
a
here
big old
from
printing
Campbell.
company.
Somebody with a plan.
It says, it's interesting that the two large producers are both Italian. What's the history behind that? Yeah, it's interesting that. We'll have to look into that.
I don't know. I've got a sneaking suspicion that Zanchetti might have been
An offshoot.
Of somebody left Cartograph and set up on his own, and I think it might be that kind of deal.
But that
it's very much like Kitty Hawk came from Hobby Boss and everything.
That sounds a bit like the urban myth that Aldi and Lidl were once the same company, and it was two brothers and they split apart and everything. And it's like you look up in the history of them, it's like I think that at all.
Right.
At all. I'm afraid, gentlemen, we are going to have to wrap it up tonight. Although Pavel says the biggest problem is that Edouard actually printed in-house deckers before and used them in many non-limited edition kits, and they were much better than new stuff they introduced a couple of years ago.
Yes, they did. So, they used to do.
Those were in-house really water slide decals.
Yeah, they used to do really nice decals.
Yeah. I'm afraid, gentlemen, we are going to have to wrap this up tonight. As much as I'm enjoying having this kind of roundtable discussion, I think we need to kind of save this for a future thing where we can run this from the beginning. Four of us.
I'll go and paint some tank traps then.
I will say, as the token American here, I really like being in the quartet as
you're more than welcome.
Backup trumpet player.
Yeah,
you are welcome. You're welcome at any time, Mike.
The hierarchy is obviously guitarist, bassist, trumpet player, drummer. So
I just want to say on that point, I just want to say and make it clear, nobody ever dances to the guitarist. Everybody dances to my right foot. Nobody dances to the singer. Nobody dances to the bass player. They all dance to the drummer. You could dance at a gig with only the drummer on stage. So don't start getting above your station with all your guitar talk. Nobody's interested.
Hang about.
To that point, the lead singer is the one that gets the most ladies.
No, but the thing is, let's just clarify this for a moment. Spence is
on the roadie.
He is.
Yes. You just carry the gear in.
I am the guitar player. I'm also the bass player. I'm also the keyboard player. I can also bang out a thing on the old drums here. So I know where I am. It's like let's have our favourite drummer jokes, right? What was the last thing the drummer said before he was sacked in the band? Hey guys, why don't we play one of my songs? Etc.
Which is extraordinary, given that you're a Rush fan.
Neil Peart wrote everything for Rush.
Yeah, I'm not knocking.
You can't mock
drummers
when your favourite band in the world.
What do you call the wide-eyed person?
Literally
the wide-eyed person who follows the band around, the drummer.
And Foo Fighters, exactly. We got some breaking news tonight. I'm very pleased to say that I've noticed on their social media feed that Airfix have become aware of the massive health and safety violations that are taking place at the Airfix Zoo this evening. Obviously, that safety rail there for the rhinoceros that's appalling. I'm not sure having a kangaroo and an ostrich in a pen that, frankly, either of them can get over that in no time whatsoever. But more worryingly is obviously the
polar bear with the same fence.
Yeah, kids being able to lean over and kind of like feed seals. Well, you don't have to ask Terry Nutkins about seals and otters.
Meanwhile, not to mention the lion with an open door.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the penguin's looking at the polar bear and going, "I've never seen that. What's that?"
Yeah, exactly. The fact that the polar bear has not actually gone over that horrifically low rail, or has in fact not eaten the penguin. Because we all like to pick up a penguin. It's and again, so kudos to Airfix. They've recognised that there are serious safety failures going on at the Airfix Zoo, and they are looking into it. So thanks for that, chaps.
That is terrible, that box art. Awful.
That penguin's looking at that polar bear like, you look delicious.
Yeah, but I've never seen a polar bear before.
Yeah. It's he's probably saying that drummer was delicious. Any other business?
No.
I got nothing.
We need at some point, while Mike's on here, before we go, a suggestion for later on down in the year. We need to have a night where we talk about Monogram's aircraft kits.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, building this 106 that I'm doing at the moment, fit apart, of which talk about that later. I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to put it out there that in 1983, Monogram and their 48 scale aircraft kits were easily the
World
best
class.
in the world,
Yep.
bar none.
Yep.
I don't think there was a range of aircraft kits that could even hold a candle to that generation of kits that were produced by Monogram. And I'll go further than that. I will say that it probably took until Tamiya's current generation of 48 kits, the F-14-4, the P-38, before a 48 scale aircraft kit was released that was more detailed than that F-106. I think it took 30 years from its release before anyone got anywhere near the level of detail that's in that kit. There you go. I'm going to put that out there.
And Spencer,
No, I think we should.
I think I sent you the F-101, didn't I?
I've got both actually. I've got the photo reconnaissance version that you sent, thank you, and I've also got the two-seater as well. I've got the
detail on that kit actually rivals the 106.
What we could do is we could do an evening where we can pick out some of our favourite kind of 1 or 2 Monogram kits and talk about them, because I can tell you right now that in my display case out in the hall is the Monogram P-47D Thunderbolt bubble top that I built in 1990 when I was a sprightly lad of 22. And that's still in my display case, and it's still one of my favorite models of all time. But I tell you what, I mean that 1990. So even back then, that kit was probably about as old as me.
I mean, we talk, I'm talking about 48 scale kits. I had a look at that, and Drew will probably maybe able to correct me on this. I had a look at. I've got one of the Monogram EF-111s, the Raven.
Yeah, it was a great old kit.
1985.
Yeah, it's just, so I'm going to put it out there that at that point, maybe for 5 years, I think they were the single best aircraft model manufacturer on the planet for that short period of time.
I was going to say that P-47, however old that P-47 kit is, and I'll have to look up the age of it. But I remember when I built it in 1990, it was like it's got boxed-in wheel wells, it's got piping detail, it's got it was just phenomenal.
Look at the Monogram F-82 Twin Mustang, 1972. That kit was released.
Yeah,
gun bay, incredible interior detail. Sorry,
B-17, B-26, B-24. There's nothing in the world that touched them. So I'm going to put this out here to you 4 or you 3, the quartet. Maybe we should do some sort of little fun off challenge.
I
where
think
we all do a Monogram kit, and we set a date, but we don't have to do it in 30 days.
A little off challenge.
I know Spencer's already in the middle of one, so maybe it can be later on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that would be good. And I think I think obviously one of the absolute stone cold classic Monogram kits in 48 scale, P-51.
Big beautiful doll.
Shape wise, still absolutely spot on.
The P-51.
Yeah,
I think the P-51's fabulous.
Yeah,
I absolutely do. Hey, we've got a Tinder dating adult site.
Yeah, we got a lot of them.
All right, okie dokie. That's there we go. This is what happens when this is what happens when you let Mike on the show.
I was just waiting for John to notice. So I saw it and I thought John will notice in a minute. John will notice in a minute.
So I'm just making a note.
But I thought, like I say, I just thought I'd kind of put that out there because I think we talk about Tamiya these days as everybody that knows, they're my favourite model manufacturer, and I think they're basically untouchable, and for many reasons. But back then, it kind of eye-watering when you look at it, and you look at that weapon. I'm sorry, but that I keep going back to it. That weapons bay in that F-106 is unparalleled. I think almost even today, and it's only when you start painting.
I'm going to make a bold suggestion. That is that we do this, but we set aside one evening, 2 hours for it at least.
Yep. 2 hours. Yep.
Yeah. No, we have it. I mean, when Spencer, John, and I get together, we have a terrible habit of overrunning by at least 25 minutes on the hour. So I would suggest that if we can one night, we set aside at least 2 to really get our teeth into that as a subject.
I think we should do it, and it should be our midsummer one. Do it on the 21st of June, and have a midsummer nights.
I'm already going to call my project right now.
Yeah.
Monogram 48 scale F105G.
Yeah,
It's funny because I was about to say, Mike, my choice is going to be the Monogram 172nd scale F105G.
Mine was going to be the F105. It doesn't matter because I'm basically going to build all of the Century series anyway. Over
Then do the 101.
12 months. So
I think there's a making of a book in this, Spence.
I've done the 104 and I've done this one. So,
but I think we need
to do the 101.
Set aside some good time to discuss that one evening.
Yeah, I think we do.
And we can even do it privately, the 4 of us.
Yeah, unfortunately, gentlemen. Oh, I've broken my bell. No, I haven't. There we go. Unfortunately, gentlemen, we are out of time. We've overrun horrifically tonight by nearly an hour.
Sorry,
but as always, this is typical of the kind of like this. This is a kind of like a Telford bar conversation, isn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Something so I hope to happen in real time at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we'll do is we will definitely, I think June the 21st. Let me just have a quick look and see when June the 21st is. I think it's June the 21st, isn't it? It usually every year it usually does fall on June the 21st.
Do it the previous Sunday. Do it the Sunday.
Yeah, it's after the 20th.
Well, we could do it. We could do it Sunday the 19th, or we could do Tuesday the 21st of June. Actually, do it. Oops, Stacey. Actually, do it Midsummer Night.
No, I'd go with Sunday. I would go with the Sunday.
All right, we'll do it. We'll do that. The Midsummer Night's Dream, I think we'll call it.
Let's find a date around that when we're all available to.
I'm going to say 19th of June.
Yeah,
Sunday the 19th of June.
I know we all have different stuff going on in our lives, so
yeah, I know. Well,
life. And in June, I'm in the pool.
No, shut up.
Well, try not to walk off you're in the pool. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm afraid, gentlemen, unless we any other business.
No,
fine. Good. Obviously, we got an important observation here from Ed W, who says, "Don't worry about the penguin being eaten. The polar bear can't get the wrapper off."
Yay!
Just in case, Mike, Penguin is a brand of chocolate biscuit in the UK.
Gotcha, because that went.
But yeah, big thank you to Mike for joining us tonight. It's all well.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. We do like to think you as the second Beatle.
I'm the what was his name? The drummer.
Yes, it's Ringo Starr. Is Ringo Starr the best drummer in the world? He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. So sorry, drama jokes again. Sorry, Spence.
Eric Best, right? Eric Best.
Yeah.
Pete Best.
Yeah.
Pete Best.
Pete
That's
Best,
what it is. Pete Best. There you go. See? Thought it.
Or Mick Pointer. That's a reference that means.
Right, come on, move on. John, you're supposed to be bringing this to an end.
Good night.
Haven't eaten yet.
Anyway, look, thank you to everybody who tuned in.
This is like ending a bloody phone call in the 1980s.
Come on.
I'm the guitarist. Look, it's a joke about, how many guitarists does it take?
It's a freaking solo time now.
How many guitarists does it take to change the light bulb? One. He stands still and the world revolves around him.
Okay, slow your roll, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we're going to say thank you very much for watching tonight, everybody. We will be back on Sunday. At least some of us will be, because I shall be having words after the show. So until then, as always, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we will see you then from us all this evening.
Cheers, all. Thank you.